Good afternoon. Welcome to the informational meeting here Tuesday, January 23rd. Call this meeting to order. We will start with City Council open discussion. Any City Council open discussion? Really? Okay, well, I have two, so I'll start. One thing I wanted to draw your attention to, recently I just read it in the news how the school district and the police department are teaming together to talk about distracted driving. And this council, the former council, made it a priority to have an educational component added to our budget, and the council partnered with the police department. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. It's exciting that they are continuing this, and what a better way to partner with the students and get their drive with that. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, Councilor Selberg and I have been working on a ordinance, and I just wanted to bring it up. It's not ready 100% for prime time. It's in draft form, but February 23rd we'll be bringing an ordinance forward involving public facilities and properties, talking about the management contracts that come in front of the council. I know a lot of us had some concerns and pause that it wasn't brought forward in a super timely fashion. It kind of got dropped on us at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and it was a 100-page contract the last time around. And so our ordinance that we've vetted and discussed will require at least 7 days prior to the City Council vote, meaning it would come to us at an informational, and that contract will then have to be presented in full at the informational, and it will be posted on SIRE. So not only will the City Council get it, but also the public will have access to that for a full 7 days prior to the first vote on that. So happy to talk to you more about it offline, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention tonight, that it's coming forward. And really our intent was to improve the process and make sure those contracts are really fully vetted and give that information out there sooner. So that's all I have. Councillor?
I do have two things.
Sure.
Jim David and I have been working along with Councillor Kiley on this veteran cemetery, state veteran cemetery. Senate Bill 91 was dropped just the other day, and I understand that it has very strong backing, very, very strong backing from all the representatives and all the senators up there. So we are working hard to get that done, and then we will be bringing a resolution and then ordinance for our part here in the city. So things are moving along nicely there, and just wanted to keep you up to date. The other thing I did the other day, I stopped by Prairie Green on my way home, and in fact it was on 20th, Saturday, and the new management people are there. They have, and I had a very long and good visit with them. They have a transition person there right now. They're looking for a manager for the whole thing. They have hired every one of the staff, except for Mr. Jansa. He has chosen to go a different direction. And they have also purchased all of his equipment. And so it all worked out, folks. It all worked out. And I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. They have some innovative things that they're working on, and looking forward to doing some golfing out there as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other open discussion? If not, we'll move to our first presentation with props and all. Director Cotter, major wastewater project update. Welcome.
All right, thank you for having us, Council Chair and Councilors. Today is just an update on some significant sewer projects that you've been involved with from the beginning, with the key part, which is funding it. In addition to Trent and I, we want to just give emphasis that there's a number of city employees that bring these projects from concept all the way through construction. There's also local consultants that are involved. There's local contractors that are involved, and then a number of local suppliers. And so the ripple effect when you do these projects throughout the city really affects a lot of different entities, and don't want to overlook all the contributions that they provide. Just in general, the wastewater improvements that move a city, it's a system of underground pipes that collect the wastewater from the homes and businesses. It transports it to the treatment plant where it's ultimately treated and then discharged back to the environment. The projects that we're going to highlight today, if you envision a tree, These are the true trunk of the tree. These are the largest pipes in the city's wastewater system. They were prioritized for replacement after we did a full assessment after the 2010 collapse, and they were not on the top tier. We addressed the top tier projects. This is tier 2 projects, and they are substantially complete, the 2 first ones, and operational. So let's get started, and we'll take you through. All right, so first of all, how do we fund these projects? We fund them with user fees, but we leverage the low interest dollars that we can get provided by the state. In recent years, the state has come up with a new plan that allows us to take a reduced interest rate if we're willing to put that savings and interest up into the watershed. And we think that that's a great idea, and each project that comes forward, they've continued to do that. The other nice thing about these low interest loans, it's not like selling a bond where you take all the proceeds and then you have to start servicing that entire note. This is like a line of credit, if you will, until the project is constructed. You just essentially draw on the balance that you need, and then ultimately once you complete the project, you close the loan and then you service it as necessary. So when you see a project come forward that has a 1% interest rate, that's obviously a fantastic interest rate. The other true benefit is that we'll get the funding from the state, but then we just draw on it as the project gets built. If we have a delay, say we have a design issue or a property owner item that we have to work through, that we need to gain necessary lands or easements, if it gets delayed, we don't draw against those dollars, and there's no negative impact on the fund. So. All right. Also wanted to just highlight in the last 10 years, we've made $131 million worth of investments into the city's wastewater system. It is one of the most basic utilities a city provides, and we want to always ensure that we have reliable wastewater service for our customers. 4 projects that we're going to highlight today are the Outfall sanitary sewer. Again, that's that gravity sewer that you toured in the summer of 2016, right before we started construction. That's a gravity sewer pipe. The parallel force main is when the wastewater leaves a pump station and then gets forced to the plant, if you will, or lifted. And so we'll talk about that. That provides redundancy, but also additional capacity. Foundation Park, we've talked a lot about Foundation Park and opening up a new mega infrastructure, industrial park, and that project's well underway. And then also a look forward into the future and some of those steps that we're taking to prepare ourselves for that. All right, first the Outfall sewer. Why did we do it? So there was a pipe that was installed nearly 40 years ago, and it was a concrete 66-inch pipe that had what we call a bituminous liner. And that bituminous liner is to protect the concrete from the corrosive gases in sanitary sewer. That liner started to fail years ago, and then ultimately it starts to eat, those corrosive gases can eat right into that concrete. And so here's a picture of, normally if you see rebar in a concrete pipe, that's at the midpoint of a pipe. And so there was locations where the concrete was ate past the rebar, and in some cases beyond the rebar, so we could actually see the rebar cage sitting there. Clearly time to replace it. The slice of pipe that's behind us is the best pipe that's made today. It has inherent corrosive resistance to it, and it's also larger for some additional capacity. This pipe that we'll talk about conveys over 90% of the city's wastewater, and is certainly going to be here for generations to come. Oh, all right, so just the overall picture of what this project was. Started at the EQ Basins. That's near the Street Division campus, or essentially just north of John Morrell by the spillway. We did an improvement that allows us to fill those equalization basins faster. Sometimes when we get a breach into the system, if we've got a major rain event, one of the key things that modern wastewater systems have to have is these equalization basins, essentially large bathtubs, where we can cut the flow off to, so we don't affect downstream infrastructure. We just brought forward a project to you here a few weeks ago that expands those equalization basins. But our current piping system today only fills that equalization basin at about 20 million gallons a day, and we've doubled that capacity to fill it faster at 40 million gallons a day. That'll provide us a lot more safety for downstream infrastructure. Okay. You guys were out when we did the boring under Northcliffe Avenue. The same type of tunneling went under 229, and then we did this 72-inch pipe that's behind us. That is that pipe that is in place for the majority of the alignment. One of the key things that we changed from the existing alignment of the pipe is the existing alignment of pipe generally followed the direction of the Sioux River. And the unfortunate part is once that liner failed and then the joint started to fail, we would start to take on additional inflow when the river would rise. And so we took significant steps to move this new pipe as far away from the river as we can, so it's not under the direct influence of the rising tides of the Big Sioux River, but also has a lot better access for the maintenance teams. Okay. The designer on this project is a local firm, HDR Engineering, works closely with our team, and then the project cost with construction and design work is $15.3 million. It's operational today and it's taking on flow. Here's some pictures. So in the summer of 2016, we took a field trip and you guys took a picture by those pipes and manholes before they were installed. The upper right shows some pipe going in. This is a local contractor, H&W Contracting, that does very good work. The lower two, the picture on the lower left is the point where they start to do the tunneling machine, and then the picture in the lower right is where the tunneling machine actually breaks through and on the other side. Very close tolerance. You can put a pipe in at several hundred feet and be within a couple of inches. So very important for gravity sewer pipe. All right. Second project that we wanted to highlight is the parallel force main. So just like the outfall pipe was made out of concrete, so is our existing force main was made out of concrete. Likely less deterioration because it's under force or it's under except at the air release points, but still a risk for the city, and we needed additional capacity. So we designed in a redundant force main, and the existing one is 36. The new one is a 42-inch. It's a ductile iron pipe, and it increases our capacity up to 75 million gallons a day. We'll also highlight a project that a private developer funded and has also opened up some land for redevelopment that they bid their project with ours, and is a great win-win situation for us. Okay, so this parallel force main project that we'll talk about is shown in that light blue or magenta, and it's 12,000 feet long, a 42-inch diameter pipe, and the associated air release manholes. There's one river crossing, which is a pretty significant piece of construction because you first put in one large steel pipe and then you put this force main pipe through it. And then we built a new headwork structure at the plant so we can bring in all the force mains, this one being the key one, but then we can actually meter the flow and get some accurate inflow results. The designer on this project was also HDR Engineering. Project cost was $10.9 million, and the project has been operational. Okay, and we'll continue to use our existing force main and this force main as we'll rotate. I do want to highlight the Basin 17 project, and that's shown there in orange. And so this area naturally will be served, and there is an area basically from the Big Sioux River all the way north to 60th Street. The Sweetman family owns about 450 acres of that area, and it's generally between the Big Sioux River and Benson Road. They came to us and said, what's your schedule to open up Basin 17? And we said at the time, it's probably in 3 or 4 years. not anytime soon based on our current capital plan. I said it is good timing if you want to consider funding the design and the construction. You could bid your project with ours, get the economy of scale of a large pipe contractor, and then ultimately open up that basin. So that's another mega industrial park that has opened. That's where Gage Brothers is building today. And so just to give you a perspective on how well Sioux Falls now is positioned for industrial growth and additional jobs, that project there has been a real win to open up a piece of land that already is adjacent to the city, has really good infrastructure from the interchange at Benson Road on Rice Street, and ultimately right next to our pump station, so very efficient. That project was $1.2 million and was funded by a private developer. Okay, that is, yes. And ultimately, just like all new land, just like Foundation Park, the people that utilize those areas will pay for them in cost recovery. Essentially what they did here is they funded their entire portion, and then we won't have to charge them cost recovery. There will be a phase 2 to this that extends that pipe a little bit farther to the north and to the east, and then that will open up all that land north of Benson Road when that's ready. So it's been a really good partnership. All right, a couple other pictures here. The one in the lower left just shows what a typical river crossing looks like. The contractors kind of build a coffer dam out about halfway across the river, and they'll lay that pipe, and then they'll move to the other side of the river, and they'll build a coffer dam out on that side, and they'll start to remove the other one, and so they can cut the river flow around. But ultimately get that. First was a casing pipe in, and then they'll put in the carrier pipe. The carrier pipe is what you see is wrapped and then has the stainless steel runners that goes inside that pipe. Okay, the concrete structure that's in the lower right, that's an air release manhole. So as you put a force main in, if you have any positive and negative grades at those bends, you've got to be able to release that air so you can keep full capacity of your pipes, and that's what those structures do. Is as we do a grade change, we can get the air out so we can take full advantage of that area. All right, Foundation Park. This is the line work that's drawn here in green, and so we've got two key projects going on here. We have a pump station project that is. Trent, is it possible to use the cursor and kind of point to where that is? Is it? No? Okay, right there. So point to maybe the lift station. That's where the pump station's going, and we can show you some pictures of that. And then that wastewater will all naturally flow basically from the north to that pump station. It'll get collected, and then it's basically phase 1 of that structure's been built, and that will then force it under the interstate over to Kiwanis Avenue, and then force it south. And then once it hits about right there, it turns into a gravity system, and then it gravities over toward the Sanford Sports Complex. This project here also allowed us to open up that land north of 60th Street for development, except for the area that's under the force main constraints. All the piping has been installed. We had such a mild fall, and so all that piping has been installed with the exception of the crossings at I-90 and I-29. And then the pump station is under construction. They'll be constructing that yet for several months. So that project's gone extremely well as well. Each project is about $3.5 million for both the pump station and that outfall. And then that will also be paid back by cost recoveries. And with wind chill being the first large project sale that's happened in Foundation Park, we've already captured a large portion of our cost recovery to kick off that project. All right, this just gives you a scale of what happens underground in a lift station. So sanitary sewer flows to a lift station, and then there are mechanical rooms, there's pump rooms, things of that nature, and then it gets propelled out into a force main, gets pushed to another location. That's what's happened here. So these pictures are a few weeks old. And then last, we've always, with the amount of growth that the city of Sioux Falls and the region is having, is for the last 2 years we've been writing the master plan that looks out 20 years, 50 years, and 100 years, so we can make sure that we are proactive by identifying what needs to be done to rehabilitate the aging infrastructure. You know, most of this plant was built in the very early 80s. It's a very corrosive environment. So we'll need to understand what needs to be rehabilitated, what needs to be expanded, so we can add capacity and, again, capture the growth that's coming to this region. And then lastly, prepare for future regulations. Our current permit, we expect, will get tighter, which will require additional constituents to come out of the wastewater. But it's been a very sound, reliable wastewater plant that has served this city for a number of years, and we want to make sure we continue to invest in it. We do have on your schedule, I believe it's in mid-March, to come before you and give you kind of the look forward on what that master plan looks like. Okay. Before we take questions, I do want to just emphasize I think one of the great strategies that the city of Sioux Falls started almost 15 years ago was a very sound conservation program to start rebating older fixtures that were in some of the older houses with, you know, better fixtures, low flow toilets, shower heads, smart irrigation systems. And then the look forward on that is it saves both utilities, and it saves customers on both sides with their water bill and their wastewater bill. So the result of that, we've spent probably $3.3 million on rebates over that time, and then we save over 3 million gallons a day in having to harvest water and treat it, distribute it to the customers, but also on the wastewater side, having to collect it and convey it and treat it to the wastewater plant. So that just saves a lot of capacity, and ultimately you start to do the numbers on 3 million gallons of drinking water a day times 365. They become some pretty big numbers, close to 1 billion gallons, and ultimately then that's year after year after year, and not only on the drinking water side, but remember it also on the wastewater side as we try to maximize the use of these assets. So Trent and I are here, and we'd love to answer questions if you have some.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions? Counselor?
Thank you. This is really fascinating. I mean, just being an engineer, even if I'm a software engineer, this kind of tickles my fancy. Can you explain to me again what outfall means?
Sure. Let's go back. Some of that could be our terminology, but it's just the outfall means that's really the collection of most of the sanitary sewers that come to that, and then it outfalls to the main pump station. So it's a gravity sewer. We could also call it the main gravity sewer of the city. But I try to visually tell people, if they envision a tree and the top of the tree with all the branches and the leaves are all the homes and businesses, they all network down to the trunk. And what this project is, it's truly the trunk of the tree. It's the backbone of our sewer system, and it's been a risk that we've been managing for a few years, and are very happy to get that risk mitigated.
Is that your term or an industry term?
I would thoughts.
Typically, the industry for large pipes will use outfall, or interceptor is another term. So we have smaller diameter pipes in the city called interceptors. So we have a Sioux River South interceptor, Sioux River North. So, but it is used in the industry.
Okay, that helps. And I've heard the term interceptor, so it's good that you clarified that. The parallel force main, so that would be two pipes that run parallel to each other all the way up to the wastewater treatment plant. So do you have wastewater running through one at a time, and then you pull a switch to move it to the other if you need to service one, or is it load balancing, or how does that work?
It can be, we can run it one or the other on a typical day like today, like in the wintertime. Trent and I were visiting on the operational plan the other day. Since it just went into service, those are some of the things that we'll continue to work out. But the first one, Counselor, essentially parallels Rice Street and then cuts toward the plant. This one we again wanted to get we wanted to get it away from the first one in case that one gets breached. But those operational plans if we're really receiving some high flows, we'd be able to put wastewater in both.
At the same time?
At the same time.
Is it basically like does it do it automatically, or does it take can it detect a problem, or does somebody have to mechanically do something?
I would assume we're doing it with PLCs.
There will be controls that the operators will control.
Yeah, so we'll put logic controls on key valves, and then they'll be able to do that from the plant.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then maybe my last one, the Foundation Park lift station slide. The green, was that the, yep, there you go. Was that the shorter term connection for them until they start using a lot of wastewater, and then you would go across to the wastewater plant?
That's right. So we've got capacity in this basin to the south of us that's not fully developed yet. And so to minimize our outflow on getting service to this area, this is what we would consider phase one. You know, if they continue to attract companies like Windchill that use very little water and very little wastewater, that this solution will last for a number of years. If a food production place comes in, that could change the game fairly quickly, but we've got a plan either way. We do have a sketch that phase two would actually, at the intersection of where the horizontal line turns south, we would just continue to go straight to the plant and then take it there.
Would that be an interceptor?
Well, that would be a force
Bigger.
main.
A force main, okay.
Right,
All
so
right.
that'll be under pressure, so we call it force.
Okay, very good,
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Counselor?
Mark, going back to the pipe, the 15.3 million, just if citizens would ask, that's coming from that low-interest loan, 100%?
That's correct.
And then that's going to be paid back from the enterprise fund?
That's correct. And our current rate structures support all these projects that we brought to you today.
And how much is currently in that sewer enterprise fund?
So as of the end of November, we had $22.4 million in the fund. About a month ago, we brought forward a project with you that we said we're going to switch it from loan to cash. And so we'll be taking about the $5 million out of that fund to fund that project, the equalization project. But as of the end of November, that was $22.4 million.
So it's 22.4 minus the 5 now?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you happen to have the water enterprise fund with you by any chance?
I do. So the water available cash at the end of November was $12.6 million.
Okay, then the parallel force main project, how much did that cost?
The parallel force main project was $10.9 million.
And then how was that being funded?
Low interest loans with the user funds. That's right.
So that's, if we're mixing that, so right now, if we were talking about the current amount of debt we have, with those, we got the 15.3 and then the 10.9 that we're paying back, and then
That's correct.
What else do we have coming out of the sewer?
On the debt schedule.
Yes.
So that's always on page 17, and I always encourage people to take a look at that. So this was also at the end of November, and we're starting to draw on some of those projects, but at the end of November was about $82 million in wastewater utility debt, and which all of those loans have been set up as what I'd call low interest, short term, so they're 10 years or less. Okay.
And then the Sweetman land property that you were purchasing, that came out of the water fund, correct?
That came out of the water fund, that's right. That's immediately, I don't have a picture, but that was for future well development.
The 800 was, you and I were talking about what that, if it was at 800 or 900,000 that we paid for that.
It was about 600,000, so it was just under $5,000 an acre for about 124 acres.
Okay, and then my last question is two-pronged. How many lift stations do we have in our city?
Is it 28? 20? With, I think, public and private, we have, I think, 28.
28? And if we were, and I don't know this as just a layperson, why do we need, and I just saw that nice picture you had, why do we need lift stations? Why wouldn't the pipe just, why wouldn't everything just flow out?
Right, so in a perfect world, we wouldn't have any lift stations because they're mechanical and they will break. We need to bring them back up power, a number of things, but probably the better way to envision it is that our area is generally flat, and our city today is about 10 miles tall and 10 miles wide. And so when you're generally that flat, for us to take an entire city like that and do it all in gravity, we would be extremely deep into the ground with gravity pipes, and then you start to install some of those things under heavy heads of water, and it just becomes massively expensive. So what you do is you start to sense that a general rule of thumb would be, in a neighborhood, we really don't want sewers deeper than, they generally run somewhere between 9 and 13 feet deep. Because if something breaks, we don't want to have to completely be back to the faces of each of the houses making a repair. So if we're not, we can contain our work within the public's right of way. And so it's just, it's common practice that you lay out a basin, and a basin would generally be, if you envision like a small valley, you put your interceptor sewer at the bottom of the valley, and then the land that, as whatever rain would drop on it and fall to that area, that's how sewer flows as well. And so you generally put those in, and once sewer starts to get beyond that 30-foot deep range, you should put a pump station in so you can kind of start all over again, if that makes sense.
So they're 30 feet below the surface?
Some of our sewer pipes are, that's right.
But the lift station, it looks like it's what's the dimension of a lift station?
It all varies based on the, I would say, we've got them that they're probably about a third of this room. And we'd love to give you a tour if you wanted to see one. They all vary in size based on the type of design.
I think that'd be very interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'd like to do
so,
that.
we have things that are very visible, things like water towers, and we have things like lift stations and gravity sewers that are out of sight, out of mind, but they deliver one of the most basic services that our customers expect every day. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Counselor.
Director, I just wanted to, I remember when we had the big problem up north, and I just want to, again, thank you and your crew, because we as a council said, we need to get this fixed. Mm-hmm. And you came with a plan very quickly, I think within a month or a month and a half, and we said, do it, because we're not going to have this happen again. And so we thank you for doing that, and I really like your idea of planning out 25, 50, and 100 years, just like you're doing with the water supply and that kind of thing, because that's what's going to keep Sioux Falls vibrant and growing. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Seeing no other questions, we'll adjourn, and we do have the joint city council, city-county meeting starting at 5 o'clock. See you then.